G'day folks, it's Rob here. Today's video is all about moving this aquaponics system from up underneath the deck down to where the aquaponics system used to live a couple of years ago. So we'll just quickly say g'day to the fish. G'day Jade Perch. And now we'll move on to the system. The grow beds, those two are still here. This one here was emptied out the other day. First of all, what I did was transplant the parsley out of there. It went into the satellite bed, just planting out there for now, and it looks like it's doing okay. The spring onions have been taken upstairs to be put in the system upstairs, and the thyme was also moved over just next to the parsley as well. Just something I'll quickly point out about this media that was taken out of the bed. We've got a lot of solids, and you might be able to make out those little white chunks. I think those little white chunks are calcium hydroxide. Basically, I dosed up underneath the inlet on all the grow beds, and bits of it haven't dissolved. And those solids are just about 3 years of the small solids that have made it through the system and just been deposited underneath the grow bed inlet. So not a huge drama. Smell wise, it just smells like soil or compost. It doesn't smell bad, doesn't smell anaerobic. So in small amounts like that, not bad. But as you can see from the rest of the clay here, there is a little bit of muck on some of them. Oh, mind you, a lot of this top gravel came from the very bottom of the bed, but there was no huge amount of muck down there. So that's one of the reasons I like to use those solid settlers, just to make sure that the bulk of the muck has been removed. Now, once the grow bed was taken out, it was time to remove the sump tank's inhabitant, and that is Mr. Tandanus catfish. Pretty easy to catch this little fellow. I thought I'd have to pump all the water out of the bed and make it easier to catch him, but the little blighter, just, you know, he's pretty cruisy, just lays on the bottom of the tank, very easy to scoop up. Popped him in a bucket of water and then took him up to the deck, popped some air stones in there to keep him happy while I tried to get him acclimatized to the pH and the water temperature on the deck. Now luckily the temperature was pretty much all smack on what the system downstairs is, thanks to a little aquarium heater I now have. The system water he came from had a pH probably about 0.3 or 0.4 below what the water in the system upstairs was. So I just took a little while just to acclimatize him, taking some of the water out of his bucket and adding system water from the small system into there, just so it slowly raised the pH. Normally a pH jump like that is nothing. I mean, that happens every time we dose up our system with calcium hydroxide anyway, but I thought I'd just rather play it safe than sorry. So he stayed in there for about half an hour, and then I just tipped him into the system, and yeah, he's just been happily hanging out on the bottom of the tank ever since. Now, the next step in the grand scheme of things is to take these UV covers off this sump tank and to pump the water out. Now, I'll just give you a bit of a quick look. The sump tank is about half empty, so I'm hoping that the majority of the water will be pumped out into these beds. So the first thing to do is to take these out and put the standpipes back in. I've just had the water running across the base of these grow beds, just so I could use up as much as I could, because I knew that this day was coming. And yeah, I didn't want to have to organise other tanks and whatnot to hold all the water from the system. So that water should stop flowing into here now. We might as well uncover this. This cover will be going back on here though when the other sump tank that's replacing this one goes on, because we don't want a lot of UV light in there. And yeah, the water's just dribbling out of there now, just using up what's in those drains. And just to give us some more holding capacity, I think I might turn off the drain from the fish tank. Won't give us a great amount, but yeah, it's better than nothing. Just a quick heads up, while this sump tank is pumping out, Bianca and I do have a second YouTube channel. It is called Bits Out the Back Homestead, and it's chronicling our adventures in trying to find a farm. Fingers crossed we might be on to something good at the moment. But anyway, enough of that. There are a number of videos over there already, and a new one should be up, hopefully before this one is up on the Aquaponics channel. So do suss it out, hit that subscribe button, and if you could leave a comment under the videos, we'd really appreciate it. We will still keep this aquaponics one. We're just going to have the gardening and farming separate from the aquaponics one, just to keep everybody happy. Now back to the riveting pumping of the sump. So that small bed looks like it's full now. It's got water running back into it. And turn its flow down. And I think that fish tank is full enough. So I think I'll just turn the pump off. It's probably the easiest way to do this. there is a little bit of water left in there, so I might use the small submersible pump, probably just to pump it into a barrel. So I'm just setting this pump up so the inlet is as low to the base as I can get, so hopefully we'll get the majority of the water out of here. So something I can do while I'm waiting is just get this here ready to remove. Actually, I can take the pump out as well, I think. The easiest way to do this would be turn off all the valves and undo the fittings. I really do like these nut and tail fittings. They do make life a lot easier when you're working with plumbing, and that fitting there wasn't up very tight at all, so it'll worked his way loose somehow. That should be all I need to take the pump out. Just pop him behind the system for now. That valve is off. Take off that zip tie. Turn that valve off to that bed. And I think that pump is dry. Let's take that out. Let's take him out before he starts siphoning backwards. And there's also a clay ball in there. The next thing we need to do is make sure I don't crowd myself in here. I need to get the tray for this. So I'll just take off this little fitting here. Oh, I'll just pop him back in the barrel. Pull this barrel out, give myself a hernia. Take off this inlet. Oh, I might be able to just twist him around. There we go. And we should be right to take the sump tank out. Actually, not quite yet, because I need to undo the power cord from the box and get it out from that cage there. So now, it should be right just to pull this out and tip this up on its side. There's a few clay balls in there, but I'll pick them up later. There we go. And I might put a bucket under that drip, eh? There we go. Pretty much all right to move this down now. So the reason I decided to swap the sump tanks over is this one here has feet, as you can see, whereas the other one had a bar across the base, which meant it was a bit hard to level down on the uneven surface down the back. So I just thought this would be the easiest method. Actually, I'll take you out now because I'm about to put, whoops, the IBC in. So this IBC tank here used to be a wicking bed, and I was going to use it as a sump tank down there. But as I mentioned, the legs on the cage, because the other tank has a different profile. Not only that, the other tank is deeper as well. So there we go. Now we can flip this around, pop that back in there, and we can fill it back up. So now I'm going to pull out the standpipes from the bed and also open up the valve on the fish tank. And as soon as the pump in the sump is covered with water, I'll flick the switch and the system will be back up and running again. Just before we do go down and set up the new sump tank, I just wanted to remind you folks, I do have that online Backyard Aquaponics course for beginners, $19.95 US. There is a link pop up here somewhere and down in the description. It basically explains what is aquaponics all the way through to how to build a system, and then gives you plant suggestions, fish suggestions, and yeah, a couple of little handy builds to help you out, like the solids lifting outlet and the radial flow and whatnot. So yeah, check it out if you're interested and new to aquaponics. Could help give you a bit of a leg up. And yeah, you can always ask for my help through the app as well if yeah, you need a couple of pointers. That's enough of me rabbiting on. Let's get this sump hooked up. So one of the challenges I have with setting up this sump tank is this ground here isn't level. The old sump tank was actually buried into the ground, which made life a lot easier. Whereas this one here, it's just going to set up on top of some bricks that are basically just sitting on top of the dirt. And it's pretty much all going to be sitting there. I'm sort of wondering whether I'm even going to bother leveling it too much, mainly because this has a deeper container and will hold more water, and I'm only running one, possibly two flood and drain beds, so this will hold more than enough, even if I lose say 50 to 60 litres, just to the angle and lowering the front end. But sitting like that, yeah, we probably need to come up around about, I don't know, I'd say an inch, 25 mil, but I don't think I'm going to worry about it. One thing I do need to do though is bring it up a certain height, because the valve on this end here has a little lump underneath it, and that protrudes down further. So unless I can possibly take out the pavers where that will be sitting, that is an option. So after a bit of stuffing around and taking out the wrong pavers, I think I got it sorted now. Excuse, buddy. There we go. Yep. So that's sitting over a hollow there. That is sitting on the pavers all the way. Just to show you down here, that valve is still posing a bit of an issue, so I'm going to have to take out this one as well. Lift her up. There you come, buddy. Yeah, there we go. That's sitting a lot nicer now. Shouldn't have any issues at all. So the sump tank is in place. Obviously we need to get some water in there and try and keep that bioslime happy. And to do that, what I need to do is fire up the pump again. So that needs to go in there, and I'll sort that out in a minute. I'll just show you the sneaky little thing I did before I turned the pump off. I have filled everything up. You might be able to work out there's some water in there. Tried to hold as much water as possible within the moving bed bioreactor and the radial flow settler. And in the fish tank itself, I actually overfilled it as well. All I basically did was turn the valve off at this point here and just filled it up. So there's no mozzies in there. That's why this is over the top, and hopefully none in there either. So yeah, now all I need to do is just set the pump up. So to begin with, I will set up the pump. I've got a little waterproof power box down here that will go into in a tick. I will need to undo this though and run it through the sidewall. I'm not sure if I will keep this pump in here or whether I'll grab one of my other ones yet. Whoops, grab the washer. Screw him back up. This is the drain from the radial flow settler, which we don't really need in at the moment, but I'll just put him there to get him out of the way. This is the extra section from the bio. I'll start flooding some water through. And then up here, all I need to do, oh yeah, there's no mozzies in there, that's pretty cool. All I need to do is just open this, if I remember which way, and that will send a flood of water down through here. In fact, probably a little bit too much for this to handle. She's overflowing a bit. Oh, we might back that off. Yeah, this is the 2B radial flow settler. So chockers of water, and that's the outlet. It's a 2-inch or 50 mil into, that flows into what will be the moving bed bioreactor, and just straight pipes again. If you want to see any more information about this, just check out the video link up there on how these two filters started their life, and I'll be doing another one once they're set up completely. And we have a decent amount of water down here in the sump, but not enough. I jerry-rigged up a hose from the house. It's basically some old hose, the 25 mil line, and I've just connected it to the line that comes from the pump down there. So that's feeding directly into the fish tank, just over there, running through all the filters. This one's still got some water on the top from before, but yeah, we'll clean that off in a tick. And then down into the sump tank, and the pump looks well and truly covered. So there you go, folks. There's another reason why I really like using these little fittings on your hoses. I was able to, basically just remove this from the pump and use it to stretch out the flow from the house. Now all I have to do is bring it back down here and screw it back onto the pump after I put a washer in there. And now I can come down here and plug the pump back in again in the little waterproof box. And turn this valve on, of course. And now we're cooking with gas. Just make sure this is all sat back up and nice and watertight as well. Now, as I mentioned before, I really do need a cover over the top of this, because we are getting loads of leaves from the mango, and also the tree next door fall on this area. So I won't be setting up any grow beds just at this point in time, but I thought I'd just show you what bed will be going in first. And it's this dual root zone bed. I've got an old metal rack from my father that I've leveled. When I say leveled, what I've basically done is to level it this way, so this end is slightly higher, but it's pretty much all level across the middle there. Just over the back there too, you'll notice a couple of star pickets. or T-posts as you folks in the States call them. They are going to help secure the bed in place because it's just going to be sitting on top of this frame. The bed I'm using is this little jobby here. I got off One Man's World on Instagram and YouTube. He had a system he no longer required. So this is pretty much all going to sit like this, up against there at the back, that post there that is, and the other star picket at the front, and I'll wire them on, and that will stop them from twisting, and if someone grabs it and is silly, pulling it off the bed itself. Now, I'm not building any side support for this because the water will only be coming up, I'd say 150 millimeters or possibly 6 inches at the most, and from there it will be running into the sump tank. Now this bed will be a dual root zone, so it will be sand in the bottom, soil, and then plants planted into that I'll be rescuing from the large black bed up at the current system. I've used this method before. It grew me some fantastic spuds, some great ginger, so check out those videos if you're interested, but that's pretty much all the method I'm going to be using here. Now first off, as I said though, the cover needs to go on, but I'm not going to get to that today, so I'll pretty much will leave it there. So I do hope that you found this video interesting, and don't forget there is a bit of a series on these if you want to go back and watch the rest of the videos of the new aquaponics build. As I said before, we do have that Bits Out the Back homestead channel that we're just starting up now. Bianca and I are honing in on buying a farm, so check that out, mainly because you're going to see this system over there in a couple of months time. We're moving it down here from under the deck at the moment so we can work on the deck and do some staining up there so it doesn't drip into the system, and then from here, once we find a farm and we settle in, this system will be moved again and it'll be a completely different build. These fish will stay down here or will be harvested by then, and then we'll start off a new system from scratch. So there you go. But the whole purpose of these videos is just to give you folks a couple of ideas who like to tinker yourself and who may have to move a system one day as well. Before I go, I just wanted to really thank you folks who do leave those thumbs up and comments down in the comment section. It really does help us in the algorithm. Plus, I like to say g'day to you folks, especially for you folks who have been following us for well over a decade now. Huge thanks as well to you folks who have purchased the guide and those that are supporting us on the Farm Your Own Yard supporter website and also the YouTube membership platform. I'm going to knock off before Jack bumps the camera. I do hope you have a top one and your own gardens and aquaponics are booming, and I'll catch you next video. Cheers folks, and happy growing.